What if prehistoric giants still roam the earth? What if that rustle in the underbrush, that shadow above the trees, or that strange footprint in the mud wasn't a mistake but a survivor from another time? Although many species are considered extinct, mysterious sightings, legends, and unexplained traces continue to surface. In this article, we explore 7 fascinating creatures that are officially gone, but may still walk among us. Megatherium, the giant ground sloth. Imagine a sloth, but the size of an elephant. That was the Megatherium, a prehistoric mammal that once roamed the plains and forests of South America. These massive creatures could reach 6 meters in length and weigh over 4,000 kilograms. They were among the largest land mammals ever, and despite their slow movements, were well adapted to their environment. According to paleontologists, the Megatherium went extinct around 10,000 years ago, likely due to a combination of climate change and early human hunting. But not everyone is convinced. In the vast and largely unexplored Amazon rainforest, stories have circulated for generations about a creature locals call the Mapinguari. It is said to walk upright, topple trees, emit bone-shaking roars, and even capsize boats. The descriptions closely match what we know of the Megatherium. Expeditions have reported unidentified footprints, broken vegetation, and eerie sounds. There is no conclusive evidence, but the rainforest remains vast and mysterious. Could this giant sloth still live, hidden deep in the green heart of South America? Pterosaurs, flying reptiles from the past. Long before birds conquered the skies, pterosaurs soared above the earth, massive flying reptiles that lived between 220 and 66 million years ago. They were the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight and came in many shapes and sizes. The largest species, like Quetzalcoatlus, had wingspans over 11 meters and could weigh up to 250 kilograms. Their bodies were built for the sky: hollow bones, strong chests, long snouts, and sometimes bizarre head crests. Contrary to popular belief, pterosaurs were not dinosaurs, but a separate branch of the evolutionary tree. Some species were likely covered in a type of primitive fuzz, which may have helped with flight and temperature regulation. Although officially extinct for millions of years, mysterious sightings persist across the globe. In Papua New Guinea, locals speak of the ropin, a large flying creature with a crest on its head and a glowing tail. In the southern U.S., especially in Texas and Arizona, there are reports of large silhouettes in the sky, leathery wings, and silent attacks on livestock. Scientists typically attribute these reports to misidentified birds or bats. Still, the idea of a living pterosaur continues to spark imagination. What if a creature from the Cretaceous still glides silently above us? Moa, the forgotten giant bird of New Zealand. Until just a few centuries ago, moas roamed the forests of New Zealand, enormous, flightless birds, with some species standing up to 3.6 meters tall. These herbivores fed on leaves, fruits, and branches, using their powerful legs to move quickly through dense vegetation. They didn't even have vestigial wings. The moa simply could not fly. Their only natural predator was the mighty Haast's eagle, a raptor so large it could attack moas from the air. But the real threat came with the arrival of the Mahdi around 1300 CE. Within just a few generations, the birds were heavily hunted and lost their habitat. By the 15th century, all moa species were extinct. Still, since the 20th century, there have been occasional reports of possible moa sightings, especially in remote areas of New Zealand's South Island. Hikers and farmers claim to have seen large, fast-moving, wingless birds disappearing into the forest. There are also reports of unusually large footprints. No solid evidence has been found, but New Zealand's backcountry is vast and rarely explored. If any extinct species could have quietly survived, the moa might be the one. Mokele Mbembe, the river stopper of Central Africa. Deep in the swampy heart of the Congo Basin, local legends tell of a creature called Mokele Mbembe, meaning the one who stops the flow of rivers in Lingala. Eyewitnesses describe it as a massive reptile up to 10 meters long, with a long neck, bulky body, and thick tail closely resembling a sauropod dinosaur like the Diplodocus. The first written accounts date back to the early 20th century, when Western explorers reported mysterious stories from native tribes. Some villages identified specific lakes and swamps, such as Lake Tele, as the creature's habitat. There are even claims that Mokele Mbembe has overturned boats entering its territory. Over the decades, numerous expeditions have sought evidence, but none have returned with conclusive results. Nevertheless, sightings continue to this day, from both locals and missionaries. Scientists remain skeptical. Many suggest the reports could describe known animals like hippos or large monitor lizards. Still, the idea of a living dinosaur hidden in the impenetrable Congolese jungle remains one of cryptozoology's most captivating mysteries. Mammoth, survivor of the Ice Age? The mammoth instantly evokes images of the Ice Age, sprawling tundras, snowy plains, and massive, woolly elephant-like creatures traveling in herds. These majestic animals could grow up to 4 meters tall and weigh 10 tons. They were covered in thick fur, had a fat-rich underlayer, and carried long, curved tusks over 5 meters in length, perfect for survival in harsh climates. Most mammoths went extinct around 10,000 years ago, likely due to a combination of climate change and overhunting by humans. However, a small population survived on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean until just 4,000 years. Ago, the pyramids of Egypt were already standing. Thanks to Siberia's permafrost, remarkably preserved mammoth carcasses have been found, complete with skin, fur, and muscle tissue. Scientists have sequenced the mammoth's entire genome and are working on creating a mammoth-elephant hybrid through genetic engineering. The goal? Reintroduce them to the tundra to help restore Ice Age ecosystems and potentially combat permafrost thaw. Still, some believe the mammoth may never have fully disappeared. Hunters and geologists in Siberia have reported sightings of large, shaggy animals vanishing into the forest. Is it myth, mistaken identity, or a living relic still wandering the frozen north? Megalania, Australia's forgotten giant lizard. Long before humans set foot on Australia, a fearsome lizard prowled the land, the Megalania. This prehistoric predator is estimated to have reached over 6 meters in length and weighed up to 500 kilograms, making it the largest land-dwelling lizard to have ever lived. It was closely related to the modern Komodo dragon, but far more formidable. Megalania likely inhabited open woodlands and grasslands, hunting large prey like giant kangaroos and diprotodons. Some paleontologists believe it may have delivered venomous or bacteria-laden bites, much like today's monitor lizards. Officially, Megalania went extinct around 50,000 years ago, just as the first Aboriginal people arrived in Australia. Interestingly, Aboriginal legends tell of enormous lizards or snakes with legs, eerily similar to descriptions of Megalania. Even today, farmers and travelers in remote areas of Queensland occasionally report sightings of huge reptiles silently vanishing into the bush. Giant, unidentified tracks have also been found. No definitive proof exists, but with Australia's vast and wild interior, the possibility of a hidden apex predator can't be entirely ruled out. The Nandi bear, East Africa's night predator. In the hills and savannas of Kenya and Uganda, local legends speak of a terrifying predator, the Nandi bear. Named after the Nandi tribe, who have passed down tales for generations, the creature is described as large, muscular, and covered in thick fur. It's said to roam at night, let out chilling cries, and resemble a mix of bear, hyena, and leopard. The mystery? There are no native bear species in Africa. Yet since the early 1900s, European settlers, hunters, and explorers have reported encountering an unknown beast. Some stories involve livestock attacks, complete with deep claw marks and large, unfamiliar footprints. Some cryptozoologists believe the Nandi bear could be a surviving species of prehistoric short-faced bear, or perhaps an undiscovered giant hyena. Others suggest it may be a mutated or isolated population of a known predator. Without physical evidence, it remains speculation, but in East Africa's dense forests and mountain regions, much remains unexplored. Maybe something ancient still lurks in the night. Terror birds, birds of prey, without mercy. Imagine standing on an open plain and out of the underbrush charges a 3-meter-tall bird, faster than you can run, with a beak sharp enough to crush bone. No claws, no wings, no mercy. These were the terror birds, the undisputed rulers of their time. These giant flightless birds, part of the Phorusrhacidae family, lived millions of years ago in both South America and Antarctica, back when the southern continent was still green and habitable. They couldn't fly, but their speed, strength, and razor-sharp beaks made them deadly predators. Fossilized footprints and bones show that these birds actively hunted on land, likely preying on smaller mammals, reptiles, and young herbivores. Their only modern relatives are the relatively harmless Seriemmas, a sharp contrast to their terrifying ancestors. As Antarctica began to freeze, their habitat collapsed. The prey vanished, and so did the hunters. All that remains are footprints in fossilized mud, silent witnesses to a time when birds were the apex predators. Astropatheria, the elephant-like creature with no descendants. Picture a creature that looks like a mix between a hippo and an elephant: short trunk, bulky body, strong legs, but unrelated to any living species. That was the Astropatheria, an extinct group of herbivores that once wandered green, swampy Antarctica. These mammals lived around 40 million years ago, when the continent was still a humid, forested landscape. Astropatheria could grow up to 4 meters long and weigh several hundred kilos. Their body structure and teeth suggest a diet of soft aquatic plants, leaves, and shoots. Their fossils have been mostly found on Seymour Island, suggesting they lived in marshy, lowland areas. Their short trunk was likely used to pull food from the water, similar to the behavior of modern tapirs or elephants. Though they also lived in South America, the Antarctic populations went extinct when the climate dramatically cooled. Astropatheria left no direct descendants, a lost, unique branch in mammal evolution, and a reminder of Antarctica's lush, tropical past. Light of Terns, the tapir-like forest dweller. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice lie the remains of a creature you'd expect to find in a tropical rainforest, not the South Pole. With a body like a small camel and a head resembling a tapir, the so-called Light of Terns inhabit a forgotten chapter in the continent's history. These herbivores lived during the Eocene, when Antarctica was still covered in dense forests and had a mild, humid climate. They were likely related to today's odd-toed ungulates, the group that includes tapirs, horses, and rhinos. Their body structure and teeth indicate a diet of leaves, shoots, and soft vegetation. The presence of such animals shows that Antarctica once supported a fully functional land ecosystem complete with large mammals, plant life, and a stable food chain. But when the continent began to freeze about 34 million years ago, their habitat vanished. The Light of Terns went extinct, disappearing along with the green, habitable Antarctica that once was. Megapenguin, the gentle killer. Long before Antarctica turned into a frozen wasteland, it was home to the largest penguin species ever discovered, Palaeodiptes klekowskii, better known as the megapenguin. This prehistoric seabird could grow up to 2 meters tall and weigh over 100 kilograms, 2 to 3 times heavier than today's emperor penguin. Fossils have been found on Seymour Island, near the Antarctic Peninsula, a region that was a relatively warm coastal area around 34 to 37 million years ago. There, the megapenguins likely hunted large fish, squid, and other marine animals. Their massive size and lung capacity allowed them to dive much deeper and stay submerged longer than modern penguins, possibly up to 40 minutes per dive. The megapenguin was a dominant hunter in its ecosystem, with no natural predators in that era. The species vanished when the climate changed drastically and marine food chains collapsed. Cryolophosaurus, the dinosaur with the ice crest. Where there is now only ice and rock, a predator once roamed with a crest on its head, one of the strangest dinosaurs ever discovered. Cryolophosaurus lived about 180 million years ago, during the early Jurassic, when Antarctica was part of the warm supercontinent Gondwana. Measuring 6 to 7 meters in length, with sharp teeth, it was one of the largest meat-eaters of its time. It belonged to the theropod group, the same group as Tyrannosaurus rex and the ancestors of birds. Its most distinctive feature was a forward-facing crest on its skull. While its exact function is unknown, it likely played a role in communication or mating behavior. Fossils were found in 1,991 on Mount Kirkpatrick, over 4,000 meters high in the Transantarctic Mountains. The discovery proved that even in what is now Antarctica, under much milder conditions, large dinosaurs could thrive. Cryolophosaurus was the first dinosaur ever discovered in Antarctica and remains one of its most iconic. Basilosaurus, the giant whale from the deep. Imagine floating in open water with an 18-meter-long predator silently swimming beneath you, powerful, stealthy, deadly. In the prehistoric oceans around Antarctica, Basilosaurus was the undisputed ruler of the deep. Despite its name, meaning king lizard, Basilosaurus was not a dinosaur but an early whale. It lived around 40 to 34 million years ago, at the end of the Eocene, when Antarctica was still surrounded by warm, nutrient-rich seas. With a long, serpentine body, sharp teeth, and a jaw wide enough to swallow large prey in one bite, Basilosaurus was a terrifying marine predator. Remarkably, it still had small hind limbs, evolutionary remnants of its four-legged land-dwelling ancestors. These useless legs are literal fossil clues in the transition from land mammals to sea mammals. As the climate changed and Antarctica began to freeze, warm ocean currents vanished and ecosystems collapsed. Basilosaurus, a predator ahead of its time, disappeared along with the world it once ruled. Lystrosaurus, survivor of the ancient world. It looked like a mix between a pig and a lizard squat, low to the ground and anything but majestic, but looks deceive. Lystrosaurus may have been the most successful animal to ever live. Lystrosaurus was a therapsid, a distant ancestor of mammals, and lived 247 million years ago, right after the Permian-Triassic extinction, the greatest mass extinction Earth has ever seen. While most life vanished, Lystrosaurus survived and spread across nearly every continent. Fossils have been found in South Africa, India, and Antarctica, providing undeniable evidence of the supercontinent Gondwana and the theory of continental drift. Scientists believe Lystrosaurus may have been capable of hibernation, a unique survival strategy in harsh environments. If true, this clumsy, seemingly simple creature was evolutionarily ahead of its time. Its survival instinct, adaptability, and global spread make Lystrosaurus one of the most important fossil discoveries from Antarctica and an unexpected hero of prehistory. What once lived beneath forests and swam in warm seas now lies frozen in silence. But if you look closely, you'll see that world is not dead. It's sleeping. And we're only just beginning to discover what it has to reveal. The dire wolf. The dire wolf, or Anoceondirus, was one of the most famous predators of the Ice Age. It lived in North and South America and was larger and sturdier than the modern gray wolf. With its powerful jaws, it could crush bones and likely hunted in packs, targeting large prey such as horses and bison. Fossils from the La Brea tar pits in California have revealed a great deal about its lifestyle and behavior. About 10,000 years ago, the dire wolf disappeared, probably due to a mix of climate change and the loss of its main prey. Recently, biotechnology has put this animal back in the spotlight. In 2024 and 2025, 3 pups were born as part of a project by Colossal Biosciences. Using DNA fragments from the extinct dire wolf and advanced gene editing in gray wolves, they created animals showing some traits of the ancient species. The pups were named Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi. Although these are not exact dire wolves but genetically modified gray wolves, the experiment demonstrates what modern science is capable of. It provides insight into extinct species and raises questions about the future of de-extinction. Before we continue, don't let our community go extinct. Subscribe today. The dodo. The dodo, a flightless bird about 1 meter tall, lived only on Mauritius. When humans arrived in the 17th century, the bird quickly became a symbol of vulnerability. Within just decades, it was wiped out by hunting, habitat loss, and invasive animals such as rats and pigs. The last reliable sighting dates back to 1000 662. For scientists, the dodo is an important example of how quickly human activity can wipe out a species. Thanks to preserved bones and tissue samples, researchers have reconstructed dodo DNA. They are now trying to combine this with genetic material from the Nicobar pigeon, its closest living relative. The ultimate goal is to insert dodo traits into pigeon cells and create a new embryo. Though still in an early stage, the project shows how close science is getting. The dodo's return would not only be symbolic, but could also help restore ecosystems on Mauritius, where it once played a role in seed dispersal. The next animal is the thylacine. The thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger, was a marsupial native to Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea. Despite its wolf-like appearance, it was not a wolf at all, but a carnivorous marsupial related to kangaroos and koalas. With its striped back, it was the top predator in its ecosystem. Intensive hunting, habitat loss, and disease drove the species to extinction in the 20th century. The last known thylacine died in 1936 in a zoo in Hobart, Tasmania. Since then, it has become a symbol of human impact on nature and biodiversity. Today, scientists are exploring ways to bring the thylacine back. DNA from museum specimens is being compared with that of closely related marsupials, like the dunnart. Using genetic engineering and advanced reproductive technology, they hope to create an embryo carrying thylacine traits. If successful, it would be a major breakthrough not only scientifically, but also ecologically. The return of the thylacine could restore balance in Tasmania's ecosystem and show that humanity may be able to partly undo past mistakes. Aurochs. The aurochs was the ancestor of modern cattle. This impressive species roamed across Europe, Asia, and North Africa, and could stand up to 2 meters tall. With its massive horns and powerful build, it was a key part of ancient ecosystems. The last known aurochs died in 1627 in Poland. Although the species went extinct, its genetic legacy survives in domestic cattle. Many modern breeds still carry aurochs genes, making it relatively feasible to recreate an animal resembling the original through selective breeding or genetic engineering. Projects like Tauros and Rewilding Europe are already breeding cattle that closely resemble aurochs in appearance and behavior. The goal is not just to revive an iconic animal, but to restore nature. Aurochs, like cattle, can help keep landscapes open by grazing, promoting biodiversity. While debate continues over whether this counts as a true aurochs, the project shows that extinction doesn't always mean the end of an ecological role. The bucardo. The bucardo, a subspecies of the Spanish ibex, lived in the Pyrenees and was adapted to steep mountain slopes. Due to hunting and habitat loss, the population dwindled quickly, and in 2000 the last individual, a female named Celia, died, making the species officially extinct. But just 3 years later, a scientific first occurred. Researchers used DNA from Celia's skin cells to create a clone. With a domestic goat as a surrogate, a bucardo was born, the first extinct animal to return. Sadly, the newborn survived only a few minutes due to breathing problems, but the experiment proved that de-extinction is technically possible. Since then, the bucardo has become both a symbol of hope and a reminder of the enormous challenges in reviving vanished species. Number 7. Woodward's eagle. High over Cuba and the Northern Antilles once circled a shadow that silenced birdsong. Woodward's eagle, likely Butagallus barrasi, wasn't just big. It was colossal for an island raptor, with a chest built like a battering ram and talons like hooked knives. Estimates put its wingspan well over 2 meters, maybe more. A broad-winged ambush hunter that swooped from limestone cliffs and pine ridges. Its prey? Medium-sized mammals and birds, perhaps even juvenile sloths that wandered too far from cover. Imagine walking a karst trail at dusk, hearing wind press through sable palms, then the air tears with a dive, and there's only the quiet afterward. The eagle's decline probably began when the islands changed first climate, then people. Large prey dwindled, forests thinned, competition rose, fossil bones remained, stories faded. And yet, rumor clings to the highlands. A giant hawk seen skirting a remote canyon, a double-sized silhouette drifting at cloud level over western Cuba's oldest pines. Misidentified turkey vulture? A red-tailed hawk seen at the wrong angle? Could be, but the sky has room for ghosts. and cliffs keep their secrets, maybe extinct or maybe still out there. Number 6. The Cuban giant sloth. Think sloth, and you picture something gentle hanging from a branch. Now scale it up to bear. Megalochnus, the Cuban giant sloth, was a ground dweller with thick limb bones, shovel-like claws, and a heavy, low stride built for browsing. It foraged on leaves, palm fruits, and tender shoots, probably drinking at sinkhole pools where light fell in vertical columns. Caves in Cuba still hold its bones, beautifully preserved under stalactites, silent testimony to an animal that walked beside the first people here. Remarkably, it seems to have survived long after humans arrived, holding on for millennia as hunters and habitat pushed in. Picture it moving at evening, a bulk among gumbo-limbo trunks, pausing to sniff at fallen palm hearts. Harmless, unless cornered, huge, and yet vulnerable. Officially, it's vanished a few thousand years ago, as forests changed and hunting pressure mounted. But the island is vast in the details: knife-edged ridges, cratered magotes, caves with chambers that breathe. Every so often, a caver tells of fresh claw-like scrapes on soft cave clay, or a farmer swears an enormous oso perezoso crossed a limestone cut before dawn. Misread signs? Old stories wearing new faces? The mind fills gaps. Still, slow steps leave deep tracks. Maybe extinct or maybe still out there. Number 5. The Caribbean monk seal. They called it the sea wolf, Neomonachus tropicalis. Sleek, dark gray, big round eyes like polished beach stones. Adults stretch to about 2.4 meters and could weigh over 200 kilos, hauling out on remote sandbars to nurse pups and sleep like driftwood under the sundae. This was the only seal of the tropics, cruising reefs from the Yucatan to the Lesser Antilles. We know what happened next. Sailors, colonists, and fishers hunted them for oil and meat. Nets tangled the curious. By the mid-1900s, the rookeries had gone quiet. The last accepted sighting was in 1952 near Jamaica. In 2008, the species was declared extinct. A grim milestone, a modern marine mammal erased by people, and yet the ocean is a master of hide and seek. The Caribbean is a labyrinth of low cays and banks where no one lands for years. After hurricanes, fishers report a brown head bobbing in foam, whiskers glistening, a barking call on a dead calm evening. Sometimes storms fling northern seals far south, and misidentification happens. But some tales feel uncanny, told by captains with sun-furrowed eyes who know their animals. Is there a tiny, silent colony left on a nameless bar? A survivor that learned to haul out at night? Waves erase footprints, water keeps its counsel. Maybe extinct or maybe still out there. Number 4. The giant rat of Martinique. Meet Megalomes desmarestii, the Martinique giant rice rat, a rodent the size of a small cat, with a thick body, a brush-tipped tail, and strong incisors made for seeds, roots, and shoreline crabs. It haunted sugarcane edges, mangrove skirts, and sea grape thickets, raiding fields and dashing for cover at the hiss of cane leaves. Then came cats, dogs, and the small Indian mongoose, efficient killers in an ecosystem unprepared for them. Black rats arrived as stowaways, carrying disease and competition. And in 1902, Mount Pelée erupted. Ash fell like night, villages disappeared. Somewhere inside that century of pressure, the giant rat slipped away. But island nights still have rustles with weight. Old fishers talk about gros guo rat, huge rats moving under sea grapes, leaving heavy tracks in damp sand. Overgrown Norway rats? Stray agoutis crossing from gardens? The mind can enlarge what it fears or remembers. Yet mangrove creeks end in pockets, nobody visits, and ash made new ground as well as burying the old. A sturdy rodent could learn to live quiet in a world that wants it gone. Paw prints wash away with the tide. The thicket closes behind. Maybe extinct or maybe still out there. Number 3. The Jamaican caracara. Once, Jamaica's skies held more than parrots and swifts. The Jamaican caracara, an island relative of the modern caracaras, was both scavenger and opportunist, with a cleanup crew's appetite and a hunter's nerve. Picture a long-legged falcon with a knife-edged beak and a habit of striding proudly across open ground to drive vultures from a carcass. Fossils say it flourished when the island's fauna was richer. Sloths, giant hudias, big lizards. When those species faded, so did the caracaras niche. Long before Europeans arrived, it was likely gone. But deserts of certainty don't cover every hill. In the far west, in the morass where reeds rattle and the sky opens like a door, people still tell stories of a strange hawk that walks before it flies, bold as a dog. Could that be a misread crested caracara blown in from the mainland after a storm? Very possible storm birds are real. Could it be a misunderstood northern harrier coursing low? Also possible. Still, the idea of an island raptor that refuses to give up its runways, patrolling savanna edges and burnt cane fields, persists. A scavenger doesn't need abundance. It needs timing, guts, and a little luck. Maybe extinct or maybe still out there. Number 2. Amblyriza inundata, the giant hutia. Now imagine a rodent as heavy as a deer. Amblyriza inundata, the giant hutia of Anguilla and street martin, weighed up to an astonishing 200 kilograms. Massive jawbones hint at plant-grinding power. Limb bones suggest a barrel-chested browser that shuffled through coastal scrub, snapping twigs like pencils. Most scientists place its extinction near the end of the last ice age, when rising seas drowned corridors and shrank islands to the gems we know today. But hear this. Many of its fossils come from caves and coastal fissures that are now at or below sea level, which means at least part of its world slipped underwater, and part remains hidden in drowned caverns and blue holes. Freedivers tell stories of bone beds in twilight water. Sailors talk of water pigs that old-timers claimed once swam between islets at dusk. Today, smaller hudias still survive on other Caribbean islands, proving the group's resilience. If any giant rodent learned to hug the edges feeding at night, sleeping in limestone pores, crossing short channels when seas were kinder, it would be this one. It sounds impossible on a modern tourist map, but maps are just the surface. The underground is bigger, maybe extinct or maybe still out there. Number 1. Marcano's solenodon. Our final creature hunts with the past in its mouth. Marcano's Solenodon, Marcanoi, was a small nocturnal insect eater from Hispaniola with a flexible snout and a secret weapon, venomous saliva, delivered through grooved lower incisors. That's right, among mammals, it's one of the rare venom users. At night, it would nose through leaf litter like a living metal detector, then jab an earthworm, a beetle, a small lizard going limp seconds later. Its bones look ancient, as if sketched straight from the age of dinosaurs. Its living relatives survive in Cuba and on parts of Hispaniola, elusive, fragile, and wonderfully odd. Marcano's species, though, is considered gone probably within the last few centuries as rats, cats, and dogs arrived, and forests fractured. Even so, the night culture of this island is thick with whispers. Farmers in remote valleys speak of a long snout that clicks and squeaks, of tiny footprints under thorn bushes after rain, of poultry pens raided in a way no mongoose does. Most such tales likely belong to the surviving Hispaniolan Solenodon rare, yes, but still clinging on. Yet there's room for a twist. A cryptic lineage in one canyon. A pocket that diverged long ago and never met a biologist's headlamp. No camera traps. No roads. Just darkness, insects, and a survivor's patience. Maybe extinct or maybe still out there. The Caribbean is an experiment written in water. Islands only miles apart can grow different lizards, different birds, different destinies. A hurricane tears one ridge bare but leaves the next untouched. Mangrove mazes hide things for decades. Limestone swallows sound and light. That's how species arise. It's also how they vanish. Skeptics will rightly point to the odds. Pleistocene giants rarely slip the net of time. 20th century seals don't evade cameras forever. But islands deliver surprises. The Jamaican iguana was written off for decades until a pig hunter walked into a dry forest canyon and met a living relic. If that can happen, what else crouches behind a curtain of vines? A sky hunter gliding at cloud level over an old pine, a bulk moving slowly between limestone bosses at dusk, whiskers and two wet eyes surfacing near a nameless bar of sand. We may never know. Or we might, one night, hear a call in fog that no one alive has recorded, and follow it uphill to a burrow that smells of salt and leaf mold and history. The Caribbean we visit today is not the one that breathed yesterday. Beneath these beaches, deep in caves, and perhaps even in the last forgotten forests, the past waits. Maybe extinct, or maybe still out there. If you enjoyed this journey into the Caribbean's lost animal world, subscribe for more science, folklore, and mysteries from the edges of the map. And tell me, which land or island should we explore next?